Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mandy and today we're going to be talking about questions to ask yourself if you're thinking about homeschooling. Now these are practical questions that you are going to be faced with on a day-to-day basis that's really going to help solidify that should I homeschool, do I want to homeschool type of question for you. But before we get into the video, if you would like to join our group full of about 1,000 moms who are new and veteran homeschool moms, there is a link down below in the description. Okay, so let's get straight into the video. These are some loaded questions. These are not surface layer questions. These are pretty loaded questions that you're gonna have to really think about. Don't answer these too fast because you may find yourself rethinking your answer later on. These are real things that homeschool moms have to deal with on a day-to-day basis that is going to be a little bit difficult sometimes. So I've gathered up some of the questions that are and questions and situations that are a little bit difficult that maybe prospective homeschool parents might not realize is a part of our everyday lives. So let's get into it. Okay, here's a big one. Here's a big one, guys. Can I handle less alone time? Homeschool moms, y'all know, you guys know, we don't get that much alone time. So if you can handle alone time, if you can handle living with less alone time, then you can homeschool. This was a really big adjustment to me. I was so used to being alone. My husband was in the military, and when he was still active duty, he's retired now, but when he was still active duty, he was gone a lot. So I was alone a lot. And when my kids were off at school, that was like my free time. I got to go shopping, you know, get the groceries and, you know, do whatever I needed to do without children. Now, if you have children with you home all the time, it's not gonna work like that anymore. So that's something you really need to think about. And I'm not saying that as a negative thing. I'm just saying it's a realistic thing, okay? We wanna think realistically here. So I needed to throw this in there because this is something that as homeschool parents we deal with on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes the only alone time you get is when you're asleep and in the shower. So and sometimes it's not even that, depending on the age of your kids. So just be aware that that is something that you will have to think about and face as a homeschool parent. How important is my child's education to me? Now really think about that, because there's a lot of parents that I meet who say that their education, their child's education is the most important thing in the whole world to them, but by their actions, it's not. They are either overscheduling their kids in all of these different activities and their education kind of goes by the wayside, or they're dropping their kids at public school and they're not really involved at all with their schooling and everything is kind of up to the teachers. With homeschooling, everything is much different. You are not giving your child over to anybody else to educate them. You are the primary educator in their lives. And that's a little bit heavy of a thing to deal with when you really start thinking about it. And I know it freaks a lot of people out. It's not really as big of a deal as a lot of people tend to make it out to be. I know a lot of homeschool moms tend to overthink that part. Let's not overthink it. But at the same time, let's really think seriously about it too. Is my child's education important to me? Is this the most important thing to me when it comes to raising them? And if not, what is? For my husband and I, their education is one of the most important things to us, and that really helps solidify our decision to homeschool. So really think about that before you answer that question. Don't answer too quickly. The next question is, can I make a long-term commitment to homeschooling? Here is something that I have seen a lot of parents do. They jump into homeschooling too fast and then they put their kids back into public school, and then that really does a number on their kids emotionally, and it's not something I would want to do. It's something I would tend to want to avoid at all costs. I made myself a promise, okay, when I started homeschooling. I'm getting a little personal here, and I don't want to preach to anybody, so don't think I'm preaching to you. I'm just explaining my personal experience here. When I started homeschooling, I promised myself I would not threaten public school. And what I mean by threatening public school is, if I decided to homeschool, which I did obviously, I decided that from day one of homeschooling, I would not make a punishment going back to public school. If I was going to do this, I was going to do it all the way. I was not going to do it halfway. I was not going to put them back in at high school. I was going to go all the way to 12th grade, or I wasn't going to do it at all. And that's honestly, in my opinion, the best way to do it. I don't think taking them out of public school and putting them back in and taking them back out, putting them back in, I honestly think that it really emotionally does a number to kids. So make sure that you can commit to this for a while. Now, if something tragic comes up, like an illness or special circumstance, I'm not talking about you. Do not eat me alive in the comments over that. So that does not apply to you, okay? However, in most normal circumstances, I would recommend against taking them out of public school and then putting them back in. And don't threaten putting them back into public school as a punishment. That really does a number to kids. Don't do that. Just take my advice, don't do that. There's just gonna be fights, and as a former teacher, I can just tell you, don't do that. Because if you do end up doing that, it's gonna cause problems in the classroom as well. I foresee that. Okay, so the next question is, why do I want to homeschool? And I asked this question because this is going to be something you're going to fall back on when it really gets hard and you want to threaten to take them back to public school. So think about that. What is your why? Why do you want to homeschool? What is the reason that, or what is the primary reason you want to take them out? Is there a bullying issue? Do you want to give them a Christian education like my husband and I did? Do you want to, is there a medical issue that you want to homeschool your kids with? So think about those reasons, because when it gets hard, because trust me, there will be hard days. Y'all, there will be hard days. On those hard days, you are going to need that reason to help you stay grounded and stay calm. And I even recommend writing the reason why you want to homeschool on your refrigerator, just so when you need a breather, you can just see that and go, okay, I know it might be hard today, but in the long run, this is what I'm doing. Okay, the next one. Serious question. Can I realistically set aside several hours a day for school? Every parent, every school, every child is going to homeschool for a different amount of time. There is no set time like public school. They're not gone from 8 to 2 every day, no matter what day or grade they're in. Every child is going to be different. Sometimes, especially when they're young, they're only going to be schooling for a couple hours a day. Now, when they're older, like my kids, it's going to be 5, 6, 7 hours. But when they're young, it's not going to be that long. And actually, the recommended time, I think, for preschool is 30 minutes of like individualized instruction time. So just know that it's not going to be that long, but as they get older, it will grow, and it will, obviously there's going to be more and more time that you're going to have to invest in this. However, you need to be able to set aside that time for just schooling. That doesn't mean multitasking. That means like they're gonna need you, especially when they're young, they're gonna need you to be right there. So you need to be able to invest that time right then, unless you have some type of online curriculum or streaming service that actually instructs the child for you. However, just know that you're probably still gonna be needed to change out the DVDs, or to help with the computer, or to help with homework and things like that. So just know that you will need several hours a day, probably, of your day, 5 days a week, or however long you're schooling for this actual task. So be aware of that. And I would say the last one is a good one, and it is, are you ready to know your children on a deeper level? And this was something that really hit me hard as such a benefit of homeschool, because I never realized until probably the end of the first year how much more I knew my children, because I spent so much more time with them. I knew their likes and their dislikes, and the things that were cool to them and the things that were just, lame to them, and the things that they wanted to do, and being able to see and watch them grow like that. So just be prepared. You're gonna see your children in a whole new light when you start homeschooling them, and things are gonna change so much for you and your entire family when you start this journey, and you're really going to get to know your kids much more than surface layer. And I want to say, when my kids were in public school, I had a pretty surface layer relationship with them for those years, and I really came to regret that because I feel like I lost out. You know, their teachers spent way more time with them than I did. Their teachers knew them way more than I did, and I wasn't prepared for the good change that would come with that. So I'm telling you now, it's a great thing. So if you don't know your kids, if you feel like you don't know your kids, homeschool them. You'll get to know them very well. Okay guys, that's all I have for you today in this video. Veteran homeschool moms, post some things down there to encourage the newer homeschool moms who might be a little bit nervous, and post solutions too. All right guys, I hope that you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video. Happy homeschooling.